And welcome to another Aliens and Cowboys podcast. I'm here joined with Joe and Garrett.
Hey guys.
Good evening.
Another beautiful week of trying to catch up on sleep.
Yep.
Jumping right into it, Garrett. Something we forgot or lost track of last week?
Yeah, so I was thinking about our discussion on the Phantom Menace. And this was kind of a positive of the movie that I feel like we didn't touch on. And I feel like it's a positive for the particular movie and really a negative for the trilogy. And that's the character of Captain Panaka.
Yeah.
I feel like
definitely.
Captain Panaka was a really good character during the Phantom Menace. And kind of a letdown that his character really doesn't get more play out in the trilogy. And almost like they got rid of him or they recasted him. They replaced his character. I felt like he came a trilogy before his time. Had he been in the sequel trilogy, he'd be all over the place. I just feel like that was something that we didn't really talk about, and I feel like he deserves his mention there that Captain Panaka, really cool character.
Definitely. That's a great
yeah.
call out.
Anybody else have anything else from last week's episode?
Nothing specific from last week's episode.
Okay. Joe, pop culture us.
Yeah, pop culture. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a whole new world. New Aladdin trailer dropped, and similar to how I referenced Hellboy last week, where the trailer you lead with can make such a huge difference, they should have led with this latest trailer. I'm really excited for this movie now. Have you guys seen the latest Aladdin trailer?
I watched it today.
Looks very cool.
I
Nate,
haven't
did you
seen
catch
either
that
one
one
yet.
Okay,
No.
It's all good. We'll catch you up after this. But
Yeah, I'll tell you, this trailer was really cool. It kind of does a little parkour there.
Yeah.
The way he's running through Agrabah there, and he's kind of jumping from like post to post and going on top of buildings and down buildings. It's very reminiscent of that Casino Royale scene.
Yeah.
Where the guy's running from Daniel Craig.
I agree.
Thought that was really kind of exciting. I guess one thing that they haven't really fleshed out in the trailers, at least that I've seen, does Abu never talked? Like in the cartoon, I'm just curious how he'll communicate. Same thing, but Iago did talk, and we do see the parrot flying around. I guess I've never seen the parrot talk yet, so I'll be interested to see what they do with that character.
yeah, I agree. I'm wondering how much of a role, essentially, that they will give to him.
Yeah.
Completely agree with you.
And I guess I don't know. I know again we talked about this last time about the Aladdin trailer.
Yeah.
Or if we ever talked about the Aladdin trailer, I don't remember. But Jafar being what looks like the same age as Aladdin was kind of off-putting, considering I always felt like in the cartoon he was supposed to be way older.
Yeah.
And that's the way Jasmine. One of the reasons why Jasmine doesn't really like him is she kind of thinks he's just an old man, which he is a creepy old man.
Yeah, he is a creepy old man.
So the fact they kind of made them similar age, I think is interesting. I don't know. Go ahead.
Also found it interesting. I didn't realize this until the latest trailer. This is going to be directed by Guy Ritchie.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so for any of you listeners who are familiar with Guy Ritchie, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, I love that movie. Snatch, Man from U.N.C.L.E., the Sherlock Holmes, newest Sherlock Holmes franchise with Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law. That made me really excited as well. I think he makes some really great movies. So
Speaking of that, I think they have a third Sherlock Holmes movie coming out.
Oh, that would be great.
Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law. So
Very cool.
At least that's what I was reading.
yeah, excellent. Other than Aladdin, I had mentioned this toward the end of last week's episode. I advised I did not want to derail us too much. But a new movie coming out called The Kid. This is about Billy the Kid, directed by Vincent D'Onofrio. It also stars Vincent D'Onofrio. He does play one of the characters in it. It's got Ethan Hawke. More specifically, I called out the fact that Chris Pratt is actually going to be playing the bad guy in this movie as well. So just wanted to bring that up again. Go check out the trailer. It looks pretty cool. If you're into Westerns especially, it definitely looks like something that'll be worth checking out. Top tier cast from what I can see. So the acting talent's definitely there. Vincent D'Onofrio is, I think, a great actor. I can't think of anything I've seen that he directed necessarily. So
Yeah, me neither.
From that perspective, I'm interested too to see how this does. Yeah. I know you had mentioned something about Triple Frontier again as well, Garrett.
Yeah, so Triple Frontier comes out tomorrow. So when this podcast drops for a lot of you, of a lot of the listeners, if you have nothing going on tomorrow evening or what would be Thursday evening,
Yeah.
Triple Frontier comes out, and we didn't mention this guy before, which we should have, because again we talked about how it's going to have Ben Affleck, Garrett Hedlund, Charlie Hunnam. It's going to have Oscar Isaac.
Yep.
I believe it's who is it? Pedro Pascal.
That's right.
From the fame of Narcos. He's going to be he's Oberyn in the Game of Thrones, and he's going to be the Mandalorian on the Disney TV series.
So excited.
So It does look kind of interesting. Again, it looks kind of like an espionage heist movie. So give that a shout, or give that a watch, I guess. And, we might talk about that a little bit more on the podcast when one of us finally watches it. So before we get started, Nate?
I was just going to run through the synopsis of the film. Spoiler alert. Joe wanted us to throw out a spoiler alert. But we're finally doing a review of Infinity War.
Exactly. And we might throw out a couple things from Captain Marvel, which just dropped, of course, here this past week. So spoilers ahead, obviously, for Infinity War, the MCU as a whole, and some minor ones from Captain Marvel as well, just as a warning to everybody listening.
So just to kind of get your mindset here, Avengers Age of Ultron is the previous Avengers, full Avengers movie. Then after that drops, you get introduced to Ant-Man. Then comes Captain America Civil War. And then we're introduced to Doctor Strange as a character. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Spider-Man Homecoming. Thor Ragnarok, which has some events that kind of coincide with this movie. And then Black Panther right before Infinity War drops. But general synopsis is that Thanos is coming. He's collecting the Infinity Stones, and the Avengers have to stop him one way or the other.
Yeah.
Who is Thanos?
The Mad Titan.
The Mad Titan. That's
Okay.
right.
All right. So before we get to thoughts on rewatching, since Thanos is probably you can make the argument, he's the most important Marvel character, probably in the Marvel universe right now. So what's his goal? I know we kind of covered him on a previous episode, but let's reiterate for listeners.
Yeah.
What's Thanos, like who's Thanos and what's his goal?
Yeah.
I like this take on Thanos a lot more than what little I know about the comics. So take whatever I say with a little grain of salt. But his motivations, as I mentioned this before in previous episode, that he's trying to impress Mistress Death. And he's not trying to do that in the movies. What he's trying to do is find an equilibrium within the given universe with finite resources. And he's completely justified in his own mind the genocide of half the universe, rich, old, young, poor, whatever race or unit or galaxy you're from, completely equal flip of a coin. You live, you die.
Okay.
Yep.
And his goal, obviously, to do this is to complete the Infinity Gauntlet by collecting the stones, where, obviously, as the movie shows, with the snap of his fingers, he can basically, complete his mission there and wipe out half the universe. So, thoughts on rewatching this?
I really wanted to bring up the overall spectacle and the special effects on a rewatch. All of that really stood out to me. Marvel in general, the MCU, just seems like a masterclass in how you do effective CGI and special effects. Every single movie is a joy to watch from that perspective and what they're able to accomplish. So that really stood out to me again on a rewatch, as with most Marvel movies, is the quality of those special effects. Also, I found on this rewatch, not that I ever considered Thanos to be sympathetic, but I found him very unredeemable in this rewatch as well. When we talked about our Marvel villains in our previous episode that we did, we'd kind of been debating, are these characters redeemable? Are they not? He's really not. There's some really dark moments that stood out to me on this rewatch as well. Nate, I think you brought up in that previous episode, torturing Nebula, for example. Right. That scene's brutal. That's pretty hard to watch, actually, especially with Gamora standing there. Obviously, his just path of destruction that he cuts throughout the entire movie, opening with the death of Loki and Heimdall both. Just a lot of that stood out to me more, maybe because of our villain episode. I was looking for it, but that brutality and the intensity of the film really stood out to me this time too.
I might mention something on the script that they do such a good job of bringing all these different main characters that hold alone in their own films and still are able to make them who they are and representable of that character in the script. So you know that character is just as cool as they were somewhere else, but they still get their little quote in there. So you know they're acting like themselves throughout the movie.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So when I recently rewatched it, couple things that came to mind. One is I really think this movie does lack without having the Hulk in it. I know that there's a reason for that, and obviously we hope to get that reason in the second film,
right.
End Game. But really, it was really cool to see the Hulk attack him and then Thanos really kind of quickly dispatches him.
It really does.
And he makes Hulk put his tail between his legs for the rest of the film. Because Banner's still around. It's just he can't transform into the Hulk. But I think that's a character that's just really neat and really exciting when you talk about movies on this scale, to watch him just totally destroy large armies of people, and especially to see what he would have done at the end conflict would have been really cool. So I think that not having him as a character in the film really kind of lacks.
Totally. Well, coming off the heels of Thor Ragnarok, where he is total BA in that movie, and then to see him kind of put in his place, it is a bit jarring. I did like I don't like what happens to Hulk in it, but the callback to what Hulk does to Loki. Yeah. I believe that's the first Avengers movie, where that over-the-shoulder throw into the ground, and that's exactly what Thanos does to the Hulk himself in that scene, which I think is a good little throwback there to the first Avengers, too.
Yeah. I'll tell you one, I guess, a deeper thing to think about for this. One thing I noticed is the difference between the heroes and the villain as far as why I think that he's able to complete his mission. He clearly wants it more. He wants his mission more then they want to basically stop him, in my opinion. He's able to tear... I mean, I don't know if you want to hold this discussion till later, but, obviously we know that they're fractured from the Civil War.
Yeah.
And, even when Doctor Strange kind of comes out of nowhere and meets Iron Man in the park, right? And he thinks he's a villain, essentially, at the time he sees him. He doesn't realize he's there to help him. He looks like he's going to potentially try to attack him.
Right.
Right? And then, obviously, Banner comes out and says, no, hey, this is real, Stark. We need to take care of this. These guys aren't on the same page.
They are not.
There's really three factions of people. You got Captain America's, you've got Tony Stark's group, and then you've got the Guardians, right, of the Galaxy. They're kind of three different collectives here. They're not united. They don't really get along. And Thanos is able to basically exploit that. And he,
very much so.
He wants it. He wants it to the point where he is sacrificing the one he loves, someone he loves versus willing to sacrifice. So, I don't know. I just thought that was really interesting. I kind of caught that way more, and I thought, man, this guy, he wasn't going to be stopped, at least this time around.
There's a couple mentions to that. I think Thanos himself mentions the will to make the most difficult decisions, and he's the one to do it, too.
Yeah.
And you understand that his people are there for a singular purpose, and goal, and that's what they're going to do is that mission at hand, whereas the Avengers they all have their different approach to how to stop Thanos, and it doesn't work, like you mentioned.
Yeah. I would say the only other thing I can think of on thoughts on rewatching, what do you guys think of the viewpoint of the snap? Not so much taking out half the people, because I want to come to that at the end. How about just the heroes that get snapped? The idea that the real kind of the people left are the original Avengers,
exactly,
except for somehow Ant-Man's still around,
right? Well, and so much of that sets up the next movie because obviously so many of the theories right now are going to involve the quantum realm. They're going to involve time travel. You kind of need Scott around in order to assist with Ant-Man around in order to assist with that process. But I do like that they kind of returned it to the original Avengers. I'm glad you brought that up because that is, at least among the core group, the primary people who survive.
Okay, so let's ask this then before we get into I don't know how much casting changes we'll do.
Yeah,
but
it'll be a short.
Is there any? How about this? Is there any character you wish they didn't snap out? Because my assumption is these people that got snapped out of this film won't have as big of an impact or a role in this next film, or at least I'm assuming the first half of it. So, which character do you want to see in this film? In the second movie.
Yeah, Bucky. Bring back Bucky. I was so bummed when he got snapped.
Are you a Bucky fan?
I'm a big Bucky fan.
Oh, he's lucky that T'Challa doesn't just kill him.
Oh, dude. Bucky is awesome. And why I was obviously disappointed because I like his character when he was one of the people who did get snapped. But beyond that, I am guessing that this is probably Cap's last movie moving into End Game. There's been talk of that for Stark as well, at least in their current iterations. I want to see Cap and Bucky share as much screen time again as possible.
Okay.
And just as you mentioned, Garrett, the people who were snapped probably aren't going to have a huge impact, at least not early on, because they're going to probably try to be bringing these people back. So, Yeah, Bucky's at the top of that list for me.
What about you, Nate?
One casting change. Do you bring back Terrence Howard?
Don't you? All right, we'll get to that. Hold on, we'll get to that. But that was a good one. Who do you want to bring back in the snap? Who do you want to be in this film?
I was going to make this point. I don't know who I would necessarily bring back, but if you watch, I think, if I remember correctly, Tony Stark is left alone with Nebula on Titan.
That's right.
Everyone else on Titan dies.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think, like Joe said, they very carefully thought that through on what the next step was going to be before they decided who faded away.
Yeah. Right. So who do you think? There's nobody you would say, I want more screen time for this character that got snapped.
I thought Black Panther was kind of a surprise to me.
Yeah, I did too, and that's just because he's so popular right now. I don't think you'd want the most screen time for him. I agree with that. I also Spider-Man. I like this Spider-Man.
Very true.
I'm excited for the next movie. I think this kid is great. I think
it deals with Tony Stark and his redemption story too. About he's the one that kind of got him into this situation. He knighted him into the Avengers right beforehand.
Yeah, I love that part.
and it probably digs on him for a guy that's as cold and calculating as Stark is.
That scene gets me every time.
What's our viewpoint on Hawkeye? Because I know he's in the trailer a little bit.
Yeah, he's going to be in it.
We didn't get a lot of screen time with Hawkeye in the first one. I don't even know if he's in the first one.
Oh, Infinity War?
Infinity War.
He's not at all.
I know he's in the first and second Avengers, but I'm talking specifically
Infinity War, he's not in at all, yeah.
I read a theory that
he's going to change his name, right? He's Ronan?
Ronan.
Yeah.
A character that is like a mantle that people kind of take up periodically throughout the comics, but that possibly his family has died off due to like the repercussions of maybe him not being an Avenger, and maybe there's something he could have done to help.
Oh, so he has that kind of mental viewpoint on it. Okay.
Yeah, right.
No, that's cool. All right. So how about this? Casting changes, Nate.
Yep, so
Terrence Howard.
The original War Machine.
Yes.
And there was...
Anybody know why he didn't get recast? Or he did get recast?
I think I know.
Go ahead. Go for it. No, go for it.
So I think there was a contract dispute as to how much money he was making versus maybe Robert Downey Jr. And he was asking for a rather large sum, thinking that he was carrying that movie. Yeah. And Hollywood just said... Now we'll find somebody else.
I won't lie. I like Terrence Howard. I think he's a really good actor. He has a really good filmography. I don't think you need him as War Machine. I mean, to be fair, you don't need Don Cheadle either. You just need somebody in the suit, really, is what you need. To be fair, I don't think you really need Don Cheadle. I don't think you need War Machine, to be honest with you. I don't think it's
okay, I got you. I like his character.
Oh, I do like War Machine in the second one. I like him in the second
Ultron?
Iron Man.
Oh, Iron Man.
Sorry, second Iron Man. And I thought he really carried himself well in the final battle on Earth in Wakanda, because you could tell he was kind of like a one-man wrecking crew for a while.
He totally was. And I think he's very important in Civil War, of course, as well, because that's directly leading to the repercussions of their actions. Like, before he gets injured in that scene where they're fighting at the airport, it's almost... Some parts of it are meant to be comical, right? You have these two superhero teams that are fighting each other, but once that happens, the tone shifts in that movie, and you realize the repercussions of their actions, and then Civil War ends really dark, too, with Bucky and Cap beating up on Iron Man. So I think overall, War Machine is pretty important to the overall story.
How about, are we pro... I'm trying to think, I can't even think of his name right now.
What character does he play?
Thanos, the guy that plays Thanos. Josh Brolin. Sorry, yeah. Are we cool with Josh Brolin as Thanos?
Oh, yeah, that guy does an amazing job.
Yeah, he was good. Definitely better than Cable.
I have actually not seen Deadpool 2.
Yeah, it was overrated.
Ooh, there's a hot take.
If Ryan Reynolds is a fan, if he's a subscriber, Deadpool 2 was overrated. To be fair, the first one was overrated too.
Oh, I like the first one.
So... obviously no casting changes.
Yeah, no, I would not change a single person.
How about this? We know Captain Marvel's coming into the next one.
Yep.
We know that Hawkeye's coming back.
Correct.
Is there any other Marvel character you would want them to bring in?
I'm actually going to say no, because it's getting overcrowded as it is. So while, taking a step back, me personally, I have other favorite Marvel characters that would be cool, but from a movie perspective, it's good where it's at, I think, with the character count we're at.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to agree. I don't know how you get any more screen time in there. You're talking about like a 3.5 hour movie at that point.
It's going to probably be.
It probably will be.
I
think it is
part one and the part two.
I think there's some tertiary characters. Like, I don't know if you need to have the Wasp come in. I don't know if you needed to have War Machine come into this. Like, these are some of the tertiary characters that I don't feel like have to play a huge role in this. I know that and playing off of the success of Black Panther, you have a lot of the Wakanda people in this in Infinity War 2.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you need to give them the necessary screen time this time around that you did in the last time. Because I don't know if you need to have a battle in Wakanda.
Right.
So I feel like if you're not going to be in Wakanda, are you going to be bringing these same people out of Wakanda to fight this conflict? So I don't know. I don't know if you need to... It's nothing against Wakanda or Black Panther. That was really, really good movie. But just, again, like you said, crowded, lots of screen time.
Yeah.
If you're only going to get one more movie with Captain America, one more movie with Tony Stark, I mean, let's be fair. Robert Downey Jr. is what started all of this.
Oh, very much so.
And he's probably still the most popular character. I think he's got to have a huge presence in this film for a lot of screen time.
Yeah, a lot has to hinge, I think, on Cap and Tony mending their relationship, coming to an understanding before the resolution of the film. Whether that means what a lot of people think, whether one or both of them are going to die, whatever the case may be, I think a lot of the screen time has to focus on their story.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What's your guys' best scene?
Best scene. I'll dive into this one here.
Go ahead.
Thor flying in to save the day in Wakanda. Once he has his new weapon, Stormbreaker, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, man, that scene is awesome. I love seeing Thor super powered and going full Super Saiyan on everybody.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. That scene is great. The movie right before Thor Ragnarok probably had my overall favorite scene in the entire MCU at the very end when Thor enters and it starts playing the immigrant song and he crashes onto the bridge and lightning's going everywhere. Yeah. So, sorry guys, I'm a big Thor fan as well. That scene in Wakanda was fantastic.
Very passionate.
You're just a big Marvel fan.
Well, okay, I'm a big Marvel fan. That's true.
My favorite scene is the battle on Titan.
Okay.
It's a good one too.
It showcases like three different things for me, and it's more like how powerful Thanos is when he's taking on everyone by himself. The time when he goes one-on-one with Stark with his brand new nanotechnology, which is a huge leap from Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
But another topic. And then thirdly, Doctor Strange.
Yep.
When he takes on him one-on-one with the full Infinity Gauntlet, and he's still holding his own for a while.
Yeah.
I love that.
I'm surprised none of you said the very first fight with the Maw. The one where they first kind of see the big, what is it, the big circle spaceship, whatever,
Yeah.
the rotation comes in, and the Maw comes, and the other guy with the big axe comes, and it's
Because
obviously...
you really like the Maw.
I like the Maw. Well, let's be fair. The Maw could have wiped out a ton of these guys on his own. Yeah. He was more powerful than any of them.
I think they did a disservice getting rid of him.
That-
How quickly they did and how they did.
I think it's not how quickly. I think it's how they did. To be fair, I think it's... I think that
He didn't go down in a blaze of glory.
Right. The fact
all.
that he's beating, Iron Man, the fact that he's beating Doctor Strange altogether, the fact that... who's Doctor Strange's sidekick?
I can't think
Wong,
of his
I
name.
believe.
Wong.
Yeah.
So he's defeating...
Played by Benedict Wong, actually.
Right. He's basically taking these guys 3-on-1, because obviously Hulk can't get into the fight. The fact that he loses the way he does is kind of just, disheartening, because he was very powerful. Mm-hmm. He was very entertaining. And the way he was able to, they were shooting, kind of, I'll tell you, what it kind of reminded me of, his battle with Doctor Strange, kind of reminded me of Dumbledore and Voldemort.
Okay.
That one would launch something at him, they would turn it around or reshape it, reshift it, and then send it back. It was just constant sending something back at each other. Just really kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah.
I really liked that fight, because I also think that, and I'll get to this later, something that doesn't age the best, cutting off the arm by Wong of that character and putting him on the other side of the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we'll get to that.
We'll get to that for sure, yeah. I was not sad to see them all go. I thought that scene was great when they have him get sucked out of the ship. Yeah.
Oh, man.
You ever seen that movie, Alien? Yeah, that scene was great.
True.
It's a great fight sequence. I agree with you. I like the scene, but I was not sad at all to see Maw get sucked out into space. Yeah.
How about best quote? Anybody have a best quote?
I do have a best quote. My favorite one is by Cap, and it's when he returns to, I don't know if it's the headquarters of some kind, if it's just where War Machine lives, or if it's one of Tony Stark's. You know what I'm talking about?
I thought it was the Avengers facility.
Is that the Avengers facility still that they're
it's
at
not
there?
a tower anymore.
It's not, but it seems like.
But
Yeah,
I
okay.
think it's the Avengers facility that you see at the end of Age of Ultron. I think it's in Spider-Man. It's kind of where they have been holding court.
Nice. But I think it's when he goes in to greet Mr. Secretary, and he addresses him directly. So this is Captain America Steve Rogers, and he says, "I'm not looking for forgiveness, and I'm way past asking permission. Earth just lost your best defender, so we're here to fight. And if you want to stand in our way, we'll fight you too." hands down my favorite quote from
That's
that
pretty cool.
That's a good one.
And it's just kind of his righteous standpoint of being Captain America. Stands by his morals.
Totally. Yeah.
Go ahead, Nate.
So I got one from Peter Quill
Nice.
when he's talking with Tony Stark on Titan. And he starts out, Flash Gordon? By the way, that's a compliment. Don't forget I'm half human. That's 50% of me that's stupid. That's 100% you.
Yes.
He has some really good lines in here, Peter Quill does. But I will point out, even though my favorite my scene is on Battle of Titan, this makes me hate Peter Quill for the fact that he attacks Thanos right when they have him like subdued. And you just can't help but like cringe and like want to pull him back away from there. But
So
anyway,
true.
I do like that quote the best.
Yeah, that's a good one. You're right. Peter Quill has a bunch of great quotes. Across all the movies he appears in, he has some really great one-liners. How about you, Garrett?
I don't really have a favorite quote. I don't know if it's that quotable of a movie. I'll just tell you my favorite dialogue scene is probably between Rocket and Bucky. In the final scene when they're talking, he's like, how much for the gun? You know, and he's like, I want that gun. And he's like, how about the arm? He's like, I'll get that arm. And I've never seen the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, so I don't really care much about that group, but I really liked Rocket.
Oh, man, those movies are great if you haven't seen those.
I thought, I know, I have to get to watching those. Rocket, though, I really enjoyed him, especially the kind of like, how he kind of just pairs off with Thor.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, I'm the captain of the ship. and Peter's just like, giving this quizzical look. Like, what? He's like, yeah, I know why you're going. This is because Thanos isn't there. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I really, really enjoyed the raccoon. Or I think as Thor calls him, the rabbit.
The rabbit.
Yeah.
There's a great mix between Thor, tree, and rabbit.
Yeah,
Because that's what Thor calls him.
Yeah, I think that's a really entertaining aspect. To be fair, Thor's interaction with the Guardians is really good. Peter Quill and Thor, and he just keeps changing his voice. This is how I talk.
This is how I'm not lowering my voice. Yeah, that was great. That's one of my honorable mention for quotes, because I love that exact same scene.
Yeah.
And it's right when they're getting in the little other ship with Rocket and crew. And Thor says, I bid you farewell and good luck, morons. Because Rocket had addressed them as morons previously. So that scene is great.
Yeah, really good. How about, Nate, gifting them one item?
I just wanted him to get Stormbreaker earlier.
Oh, gosh.
He could have wrecked havoc a lot sooner than that.
So true.
I don't know. I have a hard time giving them any items or any tidbits of knowledge.
I got one.
Go ahead.
It's actually Thanos' advice after the fact of Thor. You should have gone for the head. If only this movie had managed to get an R, we wouldn't have had the snap, because Thor would have thrown Stormbreaker right at Thanos' head.
I'll gift them the idea of cutting off his arm with Wong's circle teleport that they did with the character in the previous part of the movie.
Bit of a plot hole.
That's what you don't like.
I just would gift him that idea. Like the idea that they can remove this guy's arm, but they can't remove that guy's arm? The Thanos' arm? The one you have to cut off, that we can't all of a sudden teleport around it and cut it off like they did 30 minutes earlier?
Yeah. I want to know, first of all, I hope Wong survived. I hope he was not one of the guys who was snapped as well. But I'd love to see that interaction. I know Doctor Strange got snapped, but after Wong and Doctor Strange inevitably reunite, I'd love to see Wong be like, why didn't you just cut off his arm?
Yeah,
if Wong had been there, the battle would have been over.
It'd be great if they played to that to the audience, because you know that's one of the biggest criticisms of this movie.
Yeah,
is if you go back again and you watch it, they cut off the guy's arm. Simple as that. And the fact is, they spend the rest of the movie trying to remove the gauntlet.
Exactly.
Speaking of things that are awesome, I'm jumping around. What were we talking about?
Awesome, man.
Remember is how many times Thanos one punches people down to the ground in this movie, just to show how powerful he is.
Yeah.
And you can just kind of feel how much it would hurt. It just levels people in one shot.
Yeah.
I just remember noting that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
He does it to multiple characters too.
He does. I like that they kind of characterize his fighting style as a brawler. I mean, he doesn't have weapons that he's running around with.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's got the gauntlet. That aside, though, he's just duking it out with these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's by far the superior being.
Yeah.
Most cowboyish scene, Nate.
All right, I had two here, and I don't want to steal anybody's, but I'm going to go kind of with the Hulk in the very first scene, because he's coming off a high. He just fought Fenrir on the Rainbow Bridge.
Yep.
Okay. So I mean, he has no fear. He just runs at things and beats them up. He doesn't care about how strong people are. So he just goes to the strongest being in the universe, and he's just like, I'm going to punch him to death. And it doesn't quite work out that way, but I thought it was the most cowboyish thing.
So I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Where was Hulk in the first 3 minutes of the movie?
Great question. He was just biding his time for a dramatic entrance.
He basically waits for Loki to basically get to the point where I don't even think Loki gets killed yet. I don't think he's killed yet.
I don't think he's killed yet, yeah.
But to the point where they're basically like, they're going to die, and then the Hulk's like, oh, I'll show up. Kind of like Thor at the end of the movie.
The only excuse I can think in that story is that maybe Banner kept him under wraps long enough that then he could like release the Hulk with the correct timing. So I'm not trying to make excuses, but that's what I theorize in my head.
Yeah, those are just some continuity issues is all.
Yeah.
How about you, Joe? Most cowboyish scene?
Yeah, my most cowboyish scene was also during that fight on Titan, and it's where Peter Quill was jumping on the platforms created by Doc Strange, attaches the bomb onto the back of Thanos, flips him off while diving backward through another portal right before it explodes. That was perfect.
That's a good one. My most cowboyish scene has got to be Thanos showing up at the end.
Okay.
He got the gauntlet. He comes through. Everybody knows he's there.
You're such a Thanos
and
fan.
We'll get to that. He just literally goes through everybody.
Yeah.
And it's just like he doesn't. I mean, he's never been afraid of anybody in this film, and he's definitely not afraid of them now.
Definitely not.
Which I'll say for what it doesn't age the best. We'll get to more criticisms of this movie. But yeah, I just think that was probably one of the cooler scenes. Or the idea that when he steps out and just punches Tony Stark in the head for the first time, it just knocks him out. Just kind of like, wow. Yeah. Powerful.
I had one other moment that I wanted to honorable mention for this, and that's when they introduced Captain America when, I'm going to screw up her name, Midnight.
Yeah, Proxima Midnight.
Proxima Midnight.
Such a good villain name.
And, is it not the Grim Reaper, but isn't something close to that? Her husband in the comics?
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on his name.
The guy with kind of the scythe.
Yeah,
whatever. Keep going.
So, Proxima Midnight throws the spear, and he just catches it across the train. And then you get a glimpse of, like, what the Avengers could be with Captain America being, like, the master tactician. He picks them apart, like, no problem with, like, arguably the weakest Avengers.
That's a great point. Yeah. He's got the two Avengers with no superpowers and probably the least amount of tech.
Well, let's put it this way. He's got two humans.
Yeah.
Okay, with no power. He's got Vision, who is clearly wounded and could die, and then he's got Scarlet Witch, who's obviously extremely powerful.
Oh yeah, Scarlet Witch.
But essentially, he just takes him out. Right?
Yeah. You get wrecked in that scene.
How about what doesn't age well outside of the portal? Cutting off his arm.
Okay, yeah. Overall, I thought this one was more funny. It's just Bruce Banner's flip phone.
Okay.
That was one thing that jumped out at me, more for comedic purposes, that he's still even got the thing, but...
Tony Stark's glasses when he steps into the streets of New York.
Yes.
I had Vormir. When Thanos and Gamora head to Vormir, and this is maybe part of the story continuity that I don't understand, or maybe we don't understand yet, is how the Red Skull became this like ghost to guard the Soul Stone. And I don't know if anyone really understands the purpose yet for why that occurs. Do you guys know at all?
I don't remember, to be quite honest. I would need to go back and watch the first Avenger, the first Captain America movie, because I think there is a sequence in there with how he's defeated that's tied to that stone.
They have the Tesseract, which is the Space Stone, which could have teleported him to Vormir, but why he becomes like a ghost and tied to the Soul Stone and why he can float, no, I don't know.
Yeah, that I don't know.
There's a lot of missing elements there that I'm not privy to.
It's true. I think I would just guess a cool cameo, obviously, to bring his character back. But
I've got a question, and this kind of speaks to earlier when I asked where was the Hulk in the first 3 minutes of the film.
Right.
My other biggest criticism on rewatching this is when Thanos is getting ready to show up. No, sorry, it's when Vision gets attacked. They pull Vision out. He's going to get killed. Captain America goes to save him and says, "Everybody on me." Everybody shows up but Thor. Okay? And I understand he's still fighting.
Right.
But obviously he's the one that clearly can combat, Thanos at this point. what is he doing when everybody's getting rocked here?
That's a good point.
Because not only does he walk through them once, he starts it again and walks through them one more time, basically.
Right. Well, I don't think he has because if Cap's talking into his headset, essentially telling or maybe it's on his wrist at that point, telling everyone to converge on his position.
But Rocket and Groot are there.
Yeah. Okay. Fair point.
And they would have been with Thor. I get it. You can't have everybody there, and you got to have a way to neutralize Thanos post snap. But it's just like, come on, like you already didn't.
I never thought about it.
You already had Hulk next to Thor the entire film of Thor Ragnarok, and all of a sudden he's just not there as these guys are getting decimated. Then you make this big entrance for Thor again, and he's lightening everybody up. Everybody's over here chilling. He's nowhere to be found until after the snap. And I get it. That's me nitpicking. But that's, to me, what doesn't age well is like these continuity differences where they just, I don't know. I would have been fine if he would have been there and Thanos went through him too. I would expect Thanos to go through him as well.
Right. I mean, I think it's interesting. I would love to see Thor and Thanos have a proper face-off against one another, which I don't know if we're going to get that moving into End Game.
No.
Because that is where, of course, Captain Marvel is going to come in and actually be a lot more of a presence in that film in terms of raw power against raw power. That's where she's going to kind of help come in and throw down with Thanos.
Okay.
It's filling that gap, so.
Who wins the movie, Nate?
This is a silly question, but we keep it here because of consistency throughout our movie reviews. Thanos? Did Thanos win it?
I think Thanos wins the movie.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, I would say that as well. Yeah.
I just gave him 3 snaps.
Just took out half our listeners.
Yeah. But from a very literal sense, he's the only one. We touched on this during our villain episode. He's the only one that achieves what he set out to do at this point in time.
Right.
So from a literal sense, he wins.
No, and I agree. I think he clearly does win the movie. How about, let me ask you this then, outside of Thor and his attacking Thanos at the end, is there any other hero that you think stands out in this film? Like any Avenger that you think like makes his presence known?
I would say Cap.
Okay.
In this one, I like the fact. I'm glad you brought up that scene, Nate. It's a great way to reintroduce his character in Infinity War, and the fact that he has been essentially on the run. He's still essentially fighting for truth and justice, right? He's just doing that in almost a paramilitary kind of way, on his own terms. And the fact that he reunites with everyone to try and bring people together to fight this common threat, I think that's a great characterization of him. And I think it really stands out too. He's just, obviously you guys know I'm a Captain America fan, but he makes his presence known in a big way, I think.
One thing that doesn't make sense, like physically, on the power scale between Thanos and Captain America is when Thanos reaches out to try to grab Cap right at the end, and he holds him back, and Thanos kind of gets a little bit of a puzzled look, like, I can't believe you can stop my hand from touching you right now. Yeah. But I think it's kind of cool in the sense that the willpower between Thanos and Steve Rogers is equal maybe at that point, and to help justify the reasoning as to why he can kind of withhold him for a second before he gets punched to the ground.
Yeah, then he gets decked pretty bad for sure. But yeah, I like that scene too. I love the surprise on Thanos' face where he's clearly not anticipating, from what he views him as, a puny human, being able to hold him back, and Cap's, just through sheer force of will, is just holding that gauntlet.
I was going to say Thor on this because he's in perfect health by the end of the movie. He's got Stormbreaker now. He's got his full lightning powers from Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah.
He's just mentally anguished from all of the loss that he's suffered here.
Okay. Let me ask you a couple more questions on this. Do we see Vision again?
Yeah, I think we do.
You don't think he's dead?
No, I don't think he's dead.
I think we see a reincarnation of him. It's a chance to reboot the entire character now that he doesn't have the Mind Stone.
Okay. What about, do we see Gamora again?
Gamora's an interesting one. I think of many of the characters from Infinity War and their fates by the end of it, Gamora is one of the few whose death might be more permanent than the others. So I don't know. I don't know if we'll see Gamora again.
I don't know either, but I think there's hope in the sense that maybe like her soul is the one that's trapped in the Soul Stone, the one that's like maybe powering it, or trapped in another realm somehow too, and then it's redeemables in some way.
Okay.
Just a thought.
It's a good theory.
I was just thinking about this because I watched the Ant-Man and Wasp the other day. I would really love it Ant-Man shrinks to the size where he can crawl around on the gauntlet as a small person. I would just like to see what that would look like cinematically with the stones and stuff.
We'll probably get that in Endgame. I would think.
Unpluck the stone from there. I think that would be kind of interesting.
That's one story element. So he snaps, right, and it like virtually destroys the gauntlet for the most part, but he's still able to teleport himself out of it.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see like what happened to it. Can he still use it? What happened to the stones?
Yes, he no longer is powerful because without the gauntlet, Thor can pretty much now take him one-on-one. So I would think there has to be something where he's going to be able to be equally matched to fight the Avengers again. How about any theories you can think of that you've heard about in this film? So one theory I've heard is the idea that the Soul Stone is going to have to be, basically gotten by a huge sacrifice. And one of the sacrifices I've heard, or the big theories, is that Tony Stark is essentially going to have to make a sacrifice that is either going to be Potts, or it's going to have to be that he's going to have to sacrifice his parents and make that decision that Bucky essentially kills his parents.
Oh, that's right. I read about that one as well, which I find one of the more fascinating theories out there.
I do too, because Civil War, I can't tell if Civil War is still my favorite or if this has become my favorite. I really like before this. Civil War is by far my favorite Marvel movie. It was really good, but like I said, the theory is that that Tony Stark is going to have to basically not really go back in time, but essentially be back in time to make the decision to sacrifice something he loves so much that it would be arguably getting Winter Soldier to kill his parents, and it's going to be coming from him to do so.
That'd be a really dark turn, but I think it would be very powerful.
Because
maybe he has the opportunity to go back in time, but he still can't do anything about it because it'll alter whatever future comes.
The problem is that you have to make the sacrifice, and so who's going to make the sacrifice to get the Soul Stone?
Yeah,
right.
And I think they'll probably play up if that comes up as a plot point. How Steve Rogers mentions that they don't trade lives. That's, I think, going to be a common thread throughout this last movie with that thought of sacrifice.
Well, and that's the thing, because the only two people I can think of that are big enough names to make the sacrifice matter, because they're the two biggest names in the Marvel Universe as the heroes, is Captain America, clearly, and Iron Man. And I would think if Tony Stark's not going to be the one that makes the sacrifice, then Captain has to. And is Captain going to end up sacrificing Bucky Barnes?
Garrett, I've got a question for you.
Yep.
If they sacrifice Captain America, do you cry in theaters?
I don't even care.
No?
No.
Oh, I'll be a wreck.
Do you cry if Iron Man?
No, I'm not going to cry if any of them get sacrificed. I will say this.
You're bringing tissues.
I'm definitely more pro Iron Man, though. I definitely like Tony Stark more than I like Steve Rogers. To be fair, I've never seen the first Captain America. I did see the second one. Winter Soldier, really good.
That's a really good one. Yeah.
Civil War is, like I said, it might still be the best film, because I think it's got a lot of nuance in it that I really like.
It does.
And I like the split of the characters. That fight scene at the airport in Civil War, to me, is still the best fight scene of the entire Marvel Universe.
It tears at you in both ways.
It's great.
I mean, you want to root for both of them.
Yeah, it's really good. Well, and I'll tell you, one of my favorite micro fight scenes in that is Hawkeye and Black Widow.
Oh, nice.
I really enjoyed their fight scene, probably the most. Maybe Spider-Man and Ant-Man, because they were just really kind of funny together.
They were funny,
But
like the Star Wars reference.
Yeah. There's a funny quote from Bruce Banner in Infinity War. He's like, "There's a Spider-Man and an Ant-Man."
That's right.
Go ahead.
Oh, yep. I was just gonna say regarding how the stones are gonna play into the plot. This is not me that came up with this theory I'm about to bring up, but something I read online earlier today, in fact, was what if the characters are infused with the stones in some way and are therefore stand-ins for the stones, and they actually would not even need them. Now, I don't have the breakdown specifically. I know that Wanda, or Scarlet Witch, she was exposed to, the Mind Stone. She had experiments conducted, so she has part of that power. Carol Danvers, it's the Tesseract. It's the Space Stone. I believe that she is imbued with to gain her powers. Jane Foster, who they aren't going to bring her back. That was Natalie Portman's character from the first. Yeah, that'd be great if they did. I think there was a falling out with contract and things like that. Sure. But I think she was also essentially possessed by one of the powers of the stone. So anyway, this theory breaks down that 6 characters, Peter Quill was on there too, with the stone that he had where he got from in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. So that these characters could actually be the ones who, with the power innately in them, could turn the tide of battle without actually having to obtain the physical stones themselves. I thought that was kind of interesting. It seems a little bit too My Little Pony to me. The power of friendship and
That's a great point.
It's a Care Bear stare.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, one thing I don't want them to do, though, is do something like that because this is the last movie.
Yeah.
And there's no way for them to redeem themselves post this movie for this franchise.
Right.
How about, is Loki dead?
No, Loki's not.
What's your theory on Loki? Because there's a theory out there that he's controlling all of this.
Yeah, I've seen that theory that he's the grand architect behind everything. I actually don't buy into that. I just he has been presumed permanently dead so many times, and he's not, that I do not think.
There's another quote from Thor. He says, I lost my brother Loki, he died. And then there's some comment from one of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and he's like, he's been dead before.
Yeah.
Like he just brushes it off like it's no big deal.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, how many times has Thor had to mourn for Loki's supposed death?
Right.
So, our last question is usually, should this get a reboot or a sequel? Obviously, we'd like a sequel, so let's skip that question. But let me ask it this way: how long do you think until they reboot this franchise?
Oh man, it would be a
Phase 4? Is that what your question is? How
long till they? If Captain America's done after this,
right?
If Chris Evans is done and Tony, Downey Jr.'s done, I think they've got one more Thor. They've got one more Spider-Man.
yeah, I think so.
How long till they completely recast these people and do this again? It's a moneymaker.
Yeah, and I don't think they'll reboot it, at least not for a very long time, in the sense of, here is Steve Rogers as Captain America, portrayed by a different actor. I don't think they'll take that route, if at all, for a very long time. What they will do is have the mantle passed on, and they can do that for infinity. Pardon the pun. They can do that as long as they want to. They can do that as long as they want to, though. They can keep going. This happens in the comics all the time, where one of the main heroes either leaves, dies, something happens, and then a different character picks up the mantle of that person and continues moving forward with it.
I agree with Joe. I think it's full of soft reboots and new characters and places to go with it. I don't think you hard reboot for a very, very long time.
But here's the thing. They hard rebooted X-Men. They hard rebooted Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
But hold on. But they...
Okay, go ahead.
No, it's okay. But it wasn't long after. I mean, I know that you still have the same, Logan, right? And Hugh Jackman playing Wolverine has been through all the X-Men movies. But they... And I won't say they rebooted it, but they did reboot it. They just took it to a different time period. And so, let's not act like it's not within the try to make a lot of money, because they got Disney's got a network coming out, and they have to put a lot of content on this network. And as much as we think Star Wars will be amazing, and it will, they need a ton of content to make it worth people paying $10 a month for, considering Netflix's content, HBO, Amazon, Hulu. They have to have a lot of stuff to put on this thing.
Yeah, well, and with that, I know also part of the reason why I don't think Loki's dead, unless they do a prequel series. Loki's going to get his own series.
Yep.
They're going to have their own series for Scarlet Witch, is what I've read as well. So she's going to have her own spin-off series on Disney Plus as well. But in regard to rebooting X-Men, I totally understand, because they did the same with Spider-Man 3 times in 10, 15 years, they've rebooted him 3 times. I think the major differences with all of those is that they are nowhere near the level of complexity that the MCU has created up to this point, where they have usually a standalone movie. That standalone movie did well. Okay, we've got a sequel, a trilogy. That's kind of where it ends. And then whether they reboot or continue from there, that's up to obviously the directors, the writers, and if the studios are willing to fund that money. The MCU is just so intertwined. I think it's a completely different level that it's on.
I could be completely wrong on this, but I'm going to say it anyway, because you're listening.
I'll tell you if you're wrong.
So I think, I can't call it a common denominator, but did Fox, I think Fox held the rights for X-Men before they were recently bought out by Marvel and Disney, I guess at this point. And then so was the Fantastic Four,
yes.
I want to say. So 2 of the 3, not Spider-Man, Fox is the common denominator for those 2. And I think it goes to show that probably they obviously weren't running it nearly as well as Kevin Feige is with the MCU.
Yeah.
Sure.
But Spider-Man is kind of the one-off out of that.
Let's also not forget that Black Widow has a standalone film coming out too.
That's
which
right.
actually I'm kind of excited for because they're talking about casting Emma Watson in it. If you're any
really?
Harry Potter fans,
Very cool.
I didn't know if you're an Emma Watson fan.
That's what I said. Yeah, if you're an Emma Watson fan, big Emma Watson fan. Shout out to Nate's wife on that one. She'll get it if she's even listening. But I don't know. I think that I think they'll reboot it. I think again, there's just too much money in this.
Like a hard reboot, recasting.
Oh, I bet I bet you this. I bet we have a new Captain America in less than 10 years. I bet we have a new Iron Man in less than 10 years.
You bet we have, just to clarify, a new Tony Stark and a new Steve Rogers within 10 years.
Yes.
Okay. All right. It's a bold claim.
Actually, I'll put it this way. I bet we have a new Tony Stark and a new Steve Rogers in 5 years.
Okay.
I don't know if they have a standalone film in 5 years. I bet we have new people representing these guys in 5 years.
Well, see, yeah, because from a mantle perspective, I agree. We're going to have a new Iron Man, regardless of who portrays them, but it's not going to be Tony Stark's Iron Man. And same with Steve Rogers. We're going to have a new Captain America. I can almost guarantee the same thing. I agree with you. But it's not going to be Steve Rogers as Captain America. It's going to be a completely new character as that. So in the comics, for example, both Falcon and Bucky take up the mantle of Captain America at different points in time. So they can very easily take that and run with it for however long they want.
I'm going to go out. Okay, fair enough. Then I'll give you that. There will be a new Captain America in 5 years. Maybe it's not Steve Rogers. Just like we were trying to kind of at the end of the Christopher Nolan's Batman.
Right.
That we thought Joseph Gordon-Levitt was all of a sudden going to take that mantle, right? Right. We'll have a new Iron Man. We'll have a new Captain America. Because there's too much money.
There's too much money. No, I completely agree with you from that aspect of it, yes.
Yeah, and it's so popular. I would be interested to see like what they're able to like go out and grab next because obviously I'm a bigger X-Men fan than I am any of these other characters. I would love for them to be able to unite this type of success with the X-Men franchise.
Yeah.
Although I don't know if they can't do standalone movies with all these characters. I am excited for Dark Phoenix. I think Dark Phoenix is going to be great. Did you see the new trailer for it at all?
Yeah.
It's really good.
I thought it looked cool too. I think it's a step in the right direction. It's probably one of the better X-Men stories that they have.
Well, to be honest with you, the James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender is really good. I really like James McAvoy as Professor X. It's a lot of nuance to his character. Same thing with Fassbender. Really good.
Definitely.
All right, so before we jump off the Marvel bandwagon here, one thing I want to talk about is some big themes. So, bigger themes to the Marvel Universe and where we maybe think that they could play out if they do in End Game. So, let's go all the way back to Spider-Man and let's talk about maturity. Here's a hero that basically, he's a kid. He's a high school student. He basically has to realize he has to, with the great power comes great responsibility. And what's interesting is he's the only character that really gets that quote to him, right? Everybody else doesn't really get that premise. His is the character that comes with great power comes great responsibility because he is a child. Whereas Tony Stark's a playboy billionaire who, I guess only because he almost died does he come to his own realization that he has this great responsibility at him, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Spider-Man, what do you guys think? Maturity within the realm of the Marvel Universe, specifically to Spider-Man.
Oh, okay, yeah, specifically to Spider-Man, I think it's one of the easiest and also most important arcs to include, and I think that's why we've had so many reboots of him as well, is despite the fact that he's so powerful, he's really one of the more powerful Marvel characters overall, it's the fact that he's still somehow very relatable. This fact that he does have growing up to do, that he still has a lot to learn. And the fact, of course, that he's looking up in a lot of ways to Tony Stark to do this and how they bridge that gap. I find it interesting he is looking up to Tony Stark because while Tony Stark has come a long way, he has that kind of moment of self-realization like you were saying, Garrett, in the first movie where he's injured, of course, and about to die. He has to fashion this device to save himself. He acts very immature a lot of the time as well. So I find really interesting to watch is the dynamic between Tony Stark and Peter Parker and how really they're kind of helping each other realize new things about each other as well and kind of both mature, both grow up in their own ways because I think Tony Stark still has a lot of ways to go for that too.
Okay, Nate.
Yeah, I think that's an easy one too. Tony Stark just is kind of his. I don't want to say his son in some ways, but he's kind of having him tag along and showing him the ways of. What's his quote in the car in that limo one time? He's like, "Don't do what I'd do. Don't do what I wouldn't do. There's a fine little gray area where you can live in."
That's a great part.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What about the idea of, so let's go forward to Civil War.
Yeah.
And the idea of surveillance.
Yes, that theme I think is really powerful throughout that movie. And obviously the whole driving force behind it, the Sokovia Accords in Civil War. And you've got completely two different powerful people and influential people within the Avengers that have polar opposite viewpoints on the matter. So Captain America wants that autonomy to work and do what he sees fit, whereas Iron Man thinks he needs to have, or rather not he, but the Avengers need to have that government oversight.
Who did you side with in that?
Captain America.
Nate?
All the way. Keep the government out of it.
Yeah, I think there's a certain dichotomy there where yes, you want people to all have a vote and a say in something, but it also causes, maybe it takes time to make a decision like that. There's always this clash of motivations too within that. So like, not to get too political, but big government versus small government type thing. Do you want a lot of oversight? Do you want a huge committees making decisions for you? Or do you want something to get executed really quickly and get it done? And I think you have to have a balance of both. There's a middle ground there, like we were saying, that people need to live in.
Okay. I like that.
I think, go ahead, Garrett.
No, please.
No, I was just going to say, that you had mentioned that Civil War was one of the stronger entries overall in the MCU, and I completely agree with you. I think it tackles some pretty good themes by obviously weaving them into a superhero story, but they do that in a way that's very tangible for, I think, the political climate in a lot of ways, too. So
sure.
And it doesn't slap you right in the face, too. It's very well disguised or interweaved into the story to where it's not like, hey, big government's bad, and
Well, one of the reasons why it's successful, too, is you've got Iron Man arguing, because he's arguably the most popular of the Marvel characters.
Yeah.
So it's not like you have Marvel and Captain America arguing with, Falcon, right? Because then everybody's like, well, of course I side with these guys, right? They're my favorites. You have arguably the favorite one saying, no, we need to take a step back and leash ourselves here. Whereas Captain America, probably the second most popular, if not the first most popular then, would be saying, no, we don't need that, right?
There's that's a huge criticism from what I was reading between, his name is Captain America, who's a military man, who goes to say, I don't trust the government anymore, to Tony Stark, who in, the second one, he pretty much tells the Senate that, you can't have my property, and tells them to buzz off, and now he's pro-government.
Well, there's also something to be said for, and I think this will come into End Game, and it kind of came in with Infinity, was in the first Avengers when he takes the nuclear warhead up into space,
great
and he
point.
kind of gets that viewpoint of seeing everybody's destruction, everybody's died, like almost like he knows what's going to happen. Which actually, to be fair, side tangent in a second about the theory on Tony Stark.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So the fact that he took the nuclear warhead up there, he saw Thanos, he saw what it meant, saw his people dying, comes back down, right? And so he's living with something that he has seen that nobody else has seen. So he's carrying the weight of those images and of that knowledge, right? Which goes to be saying that there's a belief out there, a theory, that this entire thing has been preset, and the people that were snapped knew they were going to be snapped, and that's why, what was it that... when they're talking about people and they're talking about Thanos, who's it, Nick Fury that knows everything here, and that Nick Fury is looking at, who's the lady, Robin from...
Kobe Smulders?
Kobe Smulders, right.
Yeah.
He's looking at her, and when he's going to snap, and he's trying to text, but almost like he knows it's coming, and that these guys know this is going to be the outcome, that maybe Doctor Strange went back and said, hey, this is what's going to happen, and so these are kind of a linear line of events they're going to draw from the original Avengers movie through all of the movies, based on the theory of this knowledge.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting.
It's very interesting. Time travel as any plot device gets really messy, especially if you aren't paying close attention between your films. So something I've read too to go along with that is when Doctor Strange is looking at however many millions of possible outcomes.
14,607,000.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Yeah. Something along those lines.
Sounded great, Dave.
But the question is he observing the outcomes or is he living the outcomes? Which arguably doesn't make that much of a difference. In terms of how everything pans out, maybe not. But I think it's important if at that juncture, if that's where they're going to reference in the movie to come, in End Game, if he actually is jumping around, doing a bunch of different things during that scene, and all we see him doing is kind of his head phasing back and forth.
I'd like to see... There's something about Thanos knows who Tony Stark is. So I want to see maybe what happened after he went through the portal, sent the nuclear warhead up, if there's some sort of interaction that they had that maybe hasn't been explained before he comes back down. Because it seems like he has a lot... Thanos mentions that he's got a lot of respect for Tony Stark.
Well, let's also go through this, though. Yeah. I guess back to what you were saying about Doctor Strange and his checking all the possibilities. Are we going to also forget continuity-wise? Why couldn't he just restart every time until they took care of it?
Yeah, and that's the messy part of the time travel. It would make it so easy. In a way, they kind of... I don't want to say they set themselves up to fail, because this entire plot has been very interesting and very fun to watch play out on screen, but the time travel creates so many problems here from a logistical standpoint.
How about the fact that the ending of Doctor Strange movie is him going up against a villain, and he simply just goes, you can kill me as many times as you want because I've seen this outcome, and he just keeps restarting every time.
Yeah, is the Time Stone the most powerful stone?
Yes.
I think so.
To be fair, Doctor Strange is the most powerful person.
Yet he gives it up. I don't know.
I know he gives it up. I don't know why he couldn't just simply keep going back in time and restarting until they defeated them all right there. Until they were all together, right? So, I don't know. I get it. Again, that's nitpicking, but...
Yeah, I mean, he could look at his spreadsheet of Avengers and go, oh, we need all these people assembled? Okay. Portal.
Yes.
Bring everybody to a centralized place and figure it out. Yeah.
Okay. How about isolationism, which we kind of talked about in Black Panther?
Yeah, we brought that up in that episode.
So, but I think it can also spread to Infinity War, because we talked about how there's kind of three factions of people here.
Very true.
And they're kind of living, at least Captain America is living an isolationist life with his group. They're kind of on the run. They're kind of, they're probably being vigilantes wherever they're hiding.
I think his character from the comics is called Nomad. Essentially when this series of events happens in the comics, he adopts the mantle of Nomad, so he's no longer Captain America. And you're right, it's very much more of a vigilantism style.
Same thing with, Tony Stark, right? He's trying to almost go not be a superhero anymore. He's trying to kind of live a straight life. Pepper Potts wants him to kind of give it up. She's like, you're wearing your outfit. I know you are, and then, of course, you have the Guardians, who just kind of do their own thing.
Yeah.
So you basically have these three almost isolationist groups. And so going back to Black Panther and the idea of Wakanda living isolationism, obviously Wakanda makes the concerted effort at the end of the movie to become globalized to some degree, right? To help out in the beneficial ways, right? The benevolency.
Yeah.
Whereas if these groups would have decided that, hey, we're not going to be isolationists, we're going to kind of just get over it, have Tony Stark and Captain America become friends or work out their differences and unite as the Avengers versus sub-factions, obviously we can make the argument if they were united to begin, or if they were assembled, I think I called it Avengers United. Sorry. Avengers Assembled. If the Avengers would have just assembled right away, they would have probably defeated him. So it's because they're separated, it's because they're broken, and he wants it more. That's why he's successful.
Yeah.
Any other arguments on isolationism?
Typically doesn't work. Eventually the scale gets so grand that you have to get involved and do something about it.
What did you say before the podcast happened?
I made a comparison. It didn't work for the U.S. in the World Wars. It didn't work for Wakanda.
That's natism. Okay, that's what we're going to be referring to as natisms from now on. Finally, sacrifice in Infinity War.
Yeah, there's sacrifice everywhere in this movie, the most obvious of which is what Thanos is willing to sacrifice to get his goal, to assemble the Infinity Gauntlet and make the snap. Beyond that, though, there's a lot of the characters that are willing to make sacrifices as well, and Thanos, I think, consistently undermines this through his abilities that he's able to obtain. So the first one that comes to mind is when Gamora asks Peter to kill her if Thanos ends up being able to take her. And he promises her this, and in that scene where they're by the collector on, was it Nowhere? I think is technically the location name.
Right.
He finally works himself up to the point where he's going to do it. He pulls the trigger, but Thanos has the Reality Stone at this point, and he turns the blast into bubbles. So it does nothing. He leaves with Gamora. But Peter was willing to be that dark, go to that dark a place to stop Thanos. And then fast forward, of course, as well to some later instances of that, specifically with Scarlet Witch willing to kill Vision to destroy the stone, the Mind Stone. She succeeds, but then Thanos undermines that completely because he has the Time Stone at that point. He rewinds time, takes the stone anyway, and completely diminishes the efforts that Scarlet Witch made to stop him.
Gamora steals her balanced knife from Thanos and tries to stab herself with it. Turns to bubbles. Thanos throws his favorite thing off the cliff, Gamora.
Exactly. And I think it's interesting because can you imagine if Peter Quill had traded places with Captain America? One of the most important lines I think he says is that we don't trade lives. Vision is essentially volunteering earlier in the movie that, hey, just destroy the Mind Stone. Yeah, I get it. I'll die. That's not important. We need to stop Thanos. And Captain America says, well, we don't trade lives. Like, if that had been Gamora making that argument to Captain America, that would be a brick wall at that point. There's no way Cap would make that decision to kill Gamora for what she views to be the greater good.
Okay, so let's play this game then. Obviously, we know that the Avengers are going to become successful in the end of the movie, right? We know Thanos will be defeated. We don't know who survives.
Right.
Right? So is Captain America to blame for the snap?
Is Cap to blame for the snap? No, I wouldn't blame Cap for that.
Nate, would you blame Cap for the snap?
Nope. No Cap snap here.
Why not?
Why not? He's just too good of a character. He wouldn't do anything wrong.
But the goal, obviously, that they are aware of is that he is trying to collect all the stones.
Yep. I think, to Joe's point, which makes a lot of sense in the story arc, is that it's okay. It's not okay to trade lives, except when it's Captain America and he sacrifices himself. I can see that coming to be.
Mm-hmm. Like, Cap's unwilling to sacrifice anybody else, but he's willing to do so himself, which I think Vision, in that same scene I just mentioned, Vision calls him out on that. He said, well, when you were in the first Avenger movie,
right,
Cap goes to sacrifice himself at the end to essentially save the day, and Vision calls him out on that fact that, well, you were willing to do that to yourself, so why aren't you letting me do this?
Let's forget that Tony Stark almost blew himself up in the first Avengers movie.
Right.
Right? Okay. Let's be fair. Thanos was willing to sacrifice people. He sacrificed half of the galaxy.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's important for Cap's character, because Cap knows that he can't resemble anything that Thanos resembles. Thanos is willing to sacrifice everything and anything to reach his end goal. Cap is almost the opposite. He's willing to make self-sacrifice, but there's no way Cap is going to expect anybody else, put anybody else's life in the line of danger that doesn't have to be there in order to stop Thanos. He wants to find every other avenue possible to stop Thanos without anyone having to sacrifice themselves.
Right, and I get that, but he's arguably sacrificing the safety of almost everybody. Let's be fair. He is one half of the reason why the Avengers are broken up. He is not willing to sacrifice Bucky Barnes. But what he's willing to do then, by that decision to not sacrifice Bucky Barnes, he's sacrificing potentially the fate and the lives of millions and millions and millions of people.
Yeah. Playing a what-if game.
Correct, but that's a decision he's making.
Sure.
He's making this one life is more important than our unity, which saves the lives of millions.
Well, it's the trolley problem, right? It's
Okay.
the trolley problem in the Avengers. Like, do you pull the lever, kill one person to save, in the trolley problems like 5 or 6 people, or do you value the life of that one person equally as much as you do everybody else?
Let me ask you this: Do you think Captain America?
So,
Do you think he values Bucky Barnes equally as he values, say, Vision? Because I don't. I think he would definitely sacrifice Vision before he would sacrifice Bucky Barnes.
I don't necessarily believe that he would, actually. I think he truly... That's the idealism of who Captain America is, I think, though. Well, yes, on a personal level, of course, he's lifelong friends with Bucky. But when it comes to the point of the sacrifice, that sacrifice in question, Bucky and Vision are absolutely equal in his mind. He would not sacrifice either of them. That's not an option on the table.
If I'm playing the character of Thanos or Captain Rogers in your trolley story, right?
Yeah.
Before you finish the sentence, Thanos pulls the lever and kills the one person to save the 6. Right? It's
true.
Captain America, he sits there and just sits there and tries to think of a way to save everyone across the table. But there's probably inaction.
And then the trolley hits everybody.
and then all 7 of them die.
Yes.
No. But that's the way they approach... I mean, Thanos wants peace throughout the universe. I can't imagine that Captain America doesn't want peace throughout the universe. It's how they go about that end game. Thanos is going to do it by limiting how many resources are being taken up, by killing half the people.
Correct.
And Captain America, I'm sure, holds out hope that we could figure out a way to limit our resources that everyone can live in harmony. Anyway, let's get pretty deep on that one.
Yeah.
Do you guys think Thanos has a point? Do you think let's get deep here. The overpopulation, resource limitation... I don't know. Do you feel like I
think there's a point to things being finite as far as resources, for sure.
Only so many dinosaurs in the ground.
Yeah, obviously from the resource perspective and essentially outgrowing available resources, there's a very real point that he has there. The entirety of how he goes about dealing with that is atrocious. And I don't in any way agree with that, obviously. Snapping and killing half the life in the known universe is not the way to solve the problem.
He did it fairly, though.
Well, yeah, that's his big thing. That's his big thing, is being fair.
That's his justification.
But
Question...
hold on. To be fair, though, he originally, bringing up the viewpoint on Titan, he didn't want to have to take the snap route. He wanted the lottery system to be developed where everybody, doesn't matter their place in life, would just potentially fate would take over. So it's not him deciding half dies, it's fate decides who dies. And they didn't want to do it. And they weren't strong enough to make that decision. But the idea was...
And the entire planet died.
Yeah, he didn't want to make the decision originally. He didn't want to have that option. He wanted to put that out there so that people would agree to make that decision, and that fate then would, or luck, however you'd say it, would pick who wins and, who lives and dies.
I think they're limiting their options, and this is from a perspective that in the Marvel Universe, within the known MCU, there are so many planets, so much technology. I refuse to believe that there is not a solution to be found that involves technology, terraforming a planet, doing something different to save people from overpopulation. You don't snap your fingers and kill half the known life in the galaxy to do it.
Why don't you double the finite resources?
Yeah,
buy yourself some time.
There you go.
I mean, if it's all powerful and you're omnipotent for the most part when you have the gauntlet, why don't you come up with a time or a solution for it?
You have the power of time.
People. Right.
You have the power of time. How about you take a planet and redistribute the planet to a different moment in time on another planet.
I thought you were going to say redistribute wealth.
No. Yeah. Thanos is sneaking through time like, all right, you get $5 this time. You get $2 this time.
Why do we think the gauntlet just, when the snap occurs, it kills everybody? Why couldn't it snap and created more resources?
I think that's Thanos ultimately showing that he is a villain. And an irredeemable one at that. I think he is such a true believer that the only route to take to save at least half the population of the galaxy is to kill the other half. That is ridiculous and very short-sighted. There's got to be a better way to do it. With all the power made available to him, just like you were saying, Nate, all the power of the Infinity Stones, removing the power of the Infinity Stones, though just the technology, like I said, available, there's got to be a better way to do it. Here's what I was curious about. I think we are obviously made to believe right away, without any doubt, that the wielder of the gauntlet will not be affected by the snap, right? That Thanos is not at risk. What if he was, though? I think that would make the entirety of it a little bit more compelling, knowing that there's a 50-50 chance that Thanos himself, by snapping his fingers, also might die as a result of the snap. Because otherwise, it's entirely selfish of him to do that.
Okay.
I mean, it's awful that he would do it regardless, but if he knows he's willing to sacrifice everything, except himself, for this ultimate vision, but if the gauntlet in no way guaranteed Thanos' personal safety, would that change how you guys view it a little bit? If Thanos knew he himself was at risk from snapping his fingers.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, I think it makes him a true believer if he knew that he could have been the one that get whisked away by the wind there.
Not a villain then. Definitely got some nuance in him. Just kidding.
So maybe just kind of wrap this up. We've been at it for a while now, but we were talking a while ago about the name Avengers End Game.
Yeah.
And how someone had actually bought the email address, the actual domain name for this a long time ago, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So if you're not too familiar, and I'm not familiar either, but you can essentially pay people for domain names, and you have the rights to those email addresses. The problem comes when people are trying to buy or create video games and movies or whatever, and someone already owns the rights to that email address. You have to essentially negotiate for them for that email address. And apparently, was it you, Joe, that was telling me that someone had guessed that the name of the final Avengers was Avengers End Game?
I think that might have been you, Garrett, who brought that up.
No, that was not me. Oh. I don't have that knowledge. That wouldn't have been me.
Well,
we heard it from somewhere.
Story had it that someone had guessed that the third Avengers film, fourth Avengers film, third because Captain America: Civil War, that someone had actually guessed that the last Avengers in this phase was going to be Avengers End Game. So they bought up the domain name for it, and they sat on it for years and years and years until this came to be. And then all of a sudden they come out and announce that the name of the movie, and then Marvel doesn't have the rights to this domain name. So this guy who's been paying, I don't know, a monthly subscription fee to own the domain address now owns it over the mighty MCU. And I think I was probably talking to the IT department at work, and they said that he negotiated for premiere tickets, and then he gave it to him.
Well, think about it. I mean, you can get a domain name for $5 a month. So, I mean, it wouldn't be an expensive thing. He probably could have sold it. So, although, that's more on the MCU's marketing department to not realize that title's not available before they named it.
Yeah, that's true.
They're not going to let that change the name of a movie for some
No, but you would think, though, that you would make sure that that's available for all purposes of marketing before you would say, this is the final name. I would think they would come up with different options knowing what's available. I don't know. We could be totally wrong.
So if you're looking for a get-rich-quick, maybe not quick, maybe in a few years it'll take it, just start guessing names of movies from the future.
Yeah, just don't take aliensandcowboys.com. I'm gonna take that one. So anyway. Until then, we'll be back with you guys next week. Go out to iTunes, hit the subscribe button, give us a rating, 5 stars. We also really enjoy your guys' feedback. Get us on Twitter at Alien and Cowboy. Give us an email, aliensandcowboys@gmail.com. Again, please don't take aliensandcowboys.com. We're gonna do that someday.
Dibs.
Dibs, yeah.
You heard it here.
Yep, you can't beat dibs. We'll be back again with you guys next week. Again, we're trying to come up with a couple episodes in between before we hit our Game of Thrones phase. That's going to be coming up. We'll do that probably for about 7 or 8 straight weeks. So stick with us for that. If you guys want us to cover a certain topic, let us know. But if not, we'll be back next week, guys. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.